What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Q&A, and now we're on the giant, obnoxiously giant screen version of the Q&A, hopefully to give you guys some better answers. So these are questions that I gathered from Instagram at first, so I literally am like screenshotting them, put them right up here, picking one of the ones that I kind of had similar questions about. And then after you watch this video and you do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, follow, share with your mom, all that good stuff, then put your questions down in the comments below and we'll keep this thing rolling. So right into it, favorite bicep movement. I'm guessing this is what I think is one of the best ones and not like my favorite, like I have warm and fuzzy feelings for it. So short answer on this one, for things that check a lot of the boxes, I go with single arm preacher curls. And let's look at why. So if we go through things that kind of check all the boxes, if you guys are new here, some of the things I look like, first and foremost is alignment. So you can't see huge from here, but I choose single arm because again, whenever you're using gravity, ideally you want that line of force going right through your upper arm and through the elbow. So for that is going to be a vertical upper arm position is going to be best. So if you're kind of a smaller person and you can get both arms on there fine, then doing them both at the same time is actually preferred. If for no other reason, you can train quicker. You don't have to switch and take a break between all that. But for every single person, regardless of how massive you are, you can get yourself on a preacher and get that upper arm vertical. From there, bracing. So however hard Terrence is pushing back this way, the bench, as long as it doesn't break, is pushing back equally hard. And all that means is no matter how much weight you have there, if you're set up properly, you're not gonna have any limitations anywhere else. The case here would be like the shoulder joint. So again, if you have a weight out here, it wants to center right below that next joint. In this case, it's gonna be the shoulder. So it wants to do this. So you actively have to have some sort of, shoulder flexion going on to keep your upper arm in place if you don't have a preacher. So I love the preacher because it braces perfectly, it can align perfectly, and then from there we gotta kind of get into this profile thing, and this is where you can have a little bit of a debate as far as what's the best angle, but basically the angle of setup here, so angle of the bench, this part, and where the form is and where the line of force from that weight is gonna be the thing that basically makes up the profile. So where I generally want it, let's see if I can get to where Terrence is kind of at the top-ish here. So at the top, and this is pretty good, I want to have some load at the top. I think this is where, and by load I mean joint torque, so bear with me. But if we do the line of force here, so here's the line of force from the dumbbell, here's the joint we're influencing, it's this moment arm that really determines how heavy is it in that position, right? So again, right here, relatively speaking, it's fairly light compared to the heaviest point, where if we go down to here, when that arm is, there we go, oh, it just won't lined up perfect. So here's the joint still somewhere right around there. And now here is the new line of force, and there is the moment arm. So basically when he's in that mid to lengthened range, we have the most joint torque. So again, there's a little debate now, is it really the most important to completely overload the lengthened position or that mid-range position? Instead of going super OCD where I think the internet's starting to polarize things, just get the general concept, which I think if you're looking at the whole range a muscle has, which is shortened on one end, fully lengthened on the other end, biasing the mid to lengthened range, I think is the way to prioritize your exercise selection. And so if we look at in this one, this is overloading. So if we call this, look here at the bicep, I'm not draw too much stuff. So if we said, straight here, 180 degrees is fully lengthened, let's just forget about the shoulder joint for right now. Right here is the middle of that basically, and then obviously up there is somewhere fully shortened. You can see that this is kind of not in the middle, it's more a little bit towards the lengthened position. And what happens when Terrence goes all the way down? Yeah, that's the lines up just about perfect. So we have the new line of force in this position. Let me get some of this off here. So we got the joint still, we've got the line of force from that dumbbell, and we've got the new moment arm. So where he was originally, where he's kind of in that midpoint, was more like out here. And now when we've come into that lengthened position, it's dropped off a little bit, but still that moment arm is longer than the shortened position. So all that being said, the profile here is pretty darn great. Where you're in that fully shortened position, it's gonna be the smallest moment arm, the least joint torque. As you get into that mid to lengthened range, it's the most joint torque, the most challenge. And even as you get into that fully lengthened range, it's still heavier than that shortened position. So in my opinion, this setup is really what's gonna allow you to, determine the profile, and this bench angle is really what's responsible for that kind of profile happening. So when I'm talking bench angle and how that would change and all that stuff, is if you had a more vertical, so this is almost like a spider curl, it's gonna shift things. So if I'm doing, here's an arm on here, and here's me at the bottom, the problem you're gonna have there is if there's the dumbbell, lower arm, upper arm, here's the elbow, if you drop the line of force straight down, it passes through the joint in that position. So there's no joint torque in that lengthened position at all. And when you come to the top, the upper arm's up here, you curl up here, in this position, it's going to be much heavier. There's more moment arms, stuff probably a little bit too quick, but it's going to be much heavier, relatively speaking, in that lengthened position. So the more vertical your arm goes, the more you're going to not load that lengthened position at all and overload that more shortened position. Now, the other extreme of that, if someone really wanted to have the most lengthened position overload and they wanted to do it on a preacher bench, you'd essentially want your preacher bench where the bench itself, let's just change colors here so we're not, no, I won't change colors, it'll take too long. This is the preacher bench. This is how you would set it up. This will be your upper arm. This is your elbow joint. This is your lower arm. And this is the dumbbell. So technically that will create the longest moment arm if you're literally doing a preacher curl like this. And then as you get into that mid-range, it'll essentially drop off to 0. And then as soon as you get into the shortened position, the weight actually goes to the other side of the axis and actually gets to the point where it's helping. So it's actually pulling you into elbow flexion, would completely defeat the purpose of even going there. So as the arm went up here, it would stack to the joint. There'd basically be no joint torque here. And again, as you came to this side, the weight's actually pulling you into elbow flexion. So if you technically want to overload the length and range more than any other exercise, this would be the best exercise to do it because the load creates the most joint torque in this position. And that's because of this moment arm here. It's as long as it can get. It's going to be your forearm. And then just gets basically lighter and lighter, less joint torque till there's none right in this position. Again, personally, I think this would be taking that to the extreme. But if you're one of the lengthened people where you think the lengthen is definitively better than every other range of motion, that's the preacher curl for you. But anyway, the other one's my preference because no matter what, alignment, very good. Bracing, very good. Not going to have any limitations in how much load you can handle. You can go as heavy as possible. Going to be elbow friendly, and that's my preferred profile. But depending on how you set it, now this would be tricky to do. You wouldn't actually probably want a preacher bench. You just put it across a normal bench. And someone's asking at home, well, how do I change the angle of my preacher bench? You're either just going to have to put stuff underneath the seat or change some stuff. So again, if you have a preacher bench, if you tip one side of it up, so if yours is here and you want it a little bit more vertical, you're just going to put some stuff under the back legs. Whereas if you wanted a little bit more horizontal, put some stuff under the front legs. And eventually someone will be smart and design a preacher that adjusts very easily on. Hint, hint. What do we got next? Tips for young lifters. This is a great question. Do not get overwhelmed by the massive amount of info out there. Great, great question. If you've been watching my content for a while, I might seem like I've got some overwhelming stuff out here, but here's the bullets point, because I try and always have a balance of what really matters most. Maybe we'll even link a video here of one of my videos that I think is probably the most important stuff. But here's my quick list, and I didn't sit around and meditate on this all day. This is just the first stuff that came to mind, so let me know if I missed some stuff. But enjoy the process and enjoy your why. And I mean by that is like some people, and this is me, just love the gym, kind of inherently from the first time I went in there. So whatever it was about literally just lifting weights, gym culture, I didn't ever have to really talk myself into liking it. Now, not everyone's in that boat. Some people just want more of the end result. They want the why. So I want to feel more confident about myself, and I feel like I'll feel that way if my muscles are bigger. I want to attract more of so-and-so who seemingly like someone with big muscles, so maybe I'll attract more males or females when I have more muscle, whatever it is. That's kind of your why. What's your emotional reason for it? And so really, depending on the type of person you are, if you just kind of like the process stuff, keep that the main focus. Whatever you're doing, workout related, just focus on the stuff you like the most. And again, with a little common sense of hopefully not injuring yourself, because if you like doing it now, the assumption is you want to do it 20 years from now. Don't create some orthopedic issues that prevent that from happening. But if you just want to be bigger and stronger for more emotional reasons, you don't like the process as much, then keep focused on that. Keep focused on, okay, I'm doing all this stuff. Hey, I see that my lifts have gone up, the mirror looks different, my scale's going up. Keep focused on that, and then obviously look, is that making you feel better? Are you feeling more confident? Are you getting more dates? Focus on that end result as well too is a very important thing. And then really when I get into, more so aside from just making sure you enjoy it, don't let all the information over there, because again, a lot of these people, myself included, this is what we sit around and do all day. So we tend to make this huge deal about stuff that really doesn't matter. Like I totally get being a 15-year-old through 18, I didn't think about any smart stuff. I just repeated all the bodybuilding stuff basically into my early 20s until I figured out some stuff that actually made my training a little bit more efficient and more intelligent. But before all that, I just focused on all the stuff that I love doing. And I think it's because I had years not bombarded with dumb stuff and people arguing over nobody argued over that stuff back in the day, like which range of motion is the most important, RIR and stuff like that. So make sure you enjoy it, and that lends right into this is that consistency and adherence are king. I think those things are more important. Everybody talks about effort, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's queen, it's second in line, in my opinion anyway. Because if you burn yourself out, it doesn't matter. Again, yeah, you train harder than anybody, but you're burned out, whether it's from what you're trying to adhere to, that's just this crazy schedule, or you injure yourself, then 10 years from now, again, that consistency adherence people, if you just do something consistent, even if you're not training like a crazy person right from day one, you're so much more likely to actually stack up to results because you're just in the game longer. So all that other mess aside, people will spend, weeks looking for the perfect split, avoiding actually going and doing any training, right? So all the things you're looking at, if you can just absorb some information and you find it interesting or helpful while you're still going to the gym consistently, whatever days a week you kind of commit to, that's by far more important. So find something that you can do consistently and adhere to it, and you do that long term, and eventually, even if you don't have great genetics, even if you're technically not the hardest worker in the room, you're still gonna keep getting better day after day after day. And if you have, I kind of wanted to add in here somewhere, but if you have a growth mindset where it's like, okay, well, I'm always willing to, I can get better, I can train harder, I can learn some new stuff, and you can just kind of add that in on the way, as long as you've already got that consistency and adherence, you're just gonna keep getting better. And then from there, I say effort is queen. So that's kind of a joke. It's second in line. Where I think, again, effort probably is the next big thing, where we have all the information we could ever need for what's on paper. What's the perfect split? What's the perfect, you could research all the way around, I'm gonna spend a whole week and I'm gonna listen to this coach and that coach, results producing coaches, and you could find a split that probably is more intelligent than maybe what we had 20 years ago. But everybody's got that, and not everybody looks good. And that really does where it comes in. When I look around how people train, the stuff that they're willing to post online, which they think looks good, which shows me the perception is a little bit of an issue, but I still go to normal gyms. People just don't train hard. A lot of people are just squeezing, moving, going through the motion. And as much as we kind of pick on the nerds now, which rightfully so, this isn't a new phenomenon either. I mean, I've been in gyms my 25 plus years now, and walking through and thinking about it, it's like there's been plenty of people that have just been in there going through the motions for a long time. Now we maybe have some people that are a little bit more nerdy and doing it for weird different reasons, but hey, it is what it is. From there, logbook, just write something down. So again, I look back, I literally found books that I have from when I was like 15 and 16 years old. There's nothing, I look at, hey, I was incline pressing 30-pound dumbbells. And if nothing else, when I would find ones from 5 years later and I was incline pressing 80-pound dumbbells, that has nothing to do with volume. I know that my form actually got better, but even if it stayed pretty consistent, if I just looked at the number 30 for 10, 80 for 10, anybody doing that, if your form doesn't go from good form to this, something's gonna get bigger. So obviously that has nothing to do with reps in reserve, that has nothing to do with volume, that has nothing to do with split. Just write stuff down and make sure it's going up, period. And you'll find out the stuff that's important for you to write. There were times I found in books where I was writing every single warm-up set, every single this and all this break. Then there's times when I would just write a top set. And to be honest, you'll find out over time the variables that are important to you or not that important to you. But just start writing something down. And then start tracking stuff with food. And again, how OCD you need to be with this just pertains to the specificity of your goals or where you're at in your journey. So just learn the basics of energy balance, because you still have people, grown people. There's questions on here about like, do I start doing cardio if I want to learn to lose fat? And it's like, you don't understand the basics of energy balance. Calories in, calories out. Understand that you can manipulate that by increasing your output or decreasing your input. There you go. And if you're trying to put on weight, the same thing. You need to put on weight, you need more input than you have output. You can lower your output, which not necessarily is always the big thing, but you could, or most importantly, increase your input. So you have people that are still, again, grown adults that put on grown-up clothes, get in their grown-up cars, go to their grown-up jobs, and then have the, honestly, genuinely write stuff down and say things like, I just can't lose weight, or I just can't put on weight. All you're telling me is you don't understand the basics of energy balance, where if you are eating enough, I say even if you don't train well, you'll at least start getting fatter, right? It's impossible to not put on weight if you're in a surplus. If you're not putting on weight, you're not in a surplus. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit. So understand the basics of that, and then ease into macronutrients with protein. I think protein's probably the most important macro, relatively speaking. Couldn't really do anything without completely excluding anything else, but probably the most important as far as obviously muscle building is concerned. So have this basic idea of still a decent place to start, I think, is 1 pound per lean pound, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. And then honestly, just have the idea, how do I track that? What does that look like in food? Am I doing this consistently? And then long term, as you get more specific, when you have to force feed yourself, or you have to make sure that you're in a deficit when you want to bulk or cut or whatever, you'll have to get a little bit more specific with that over time. And that's managing expectations with all of this stuff. So something that worked at some point in time isn't going to work later on down the road. But if you have a growth mindset, you manage expectations, you'll know when to manipulate that stuff. And then getting into the less important stuff, and these are kind of still in some sort of order, I think, of importance. Alignment. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in this category, but one, if it hurts, don't do it. So this is where there is some good intelligent information out there. And again, some of this really goes down the rabbit hole and gets really good in my opinion. But there's stuff like I grew up thinking like you have to bench press, you have to squat, you have to whatever. And there's some good ideas behind that, but some of it's idiotic. Meaning I hurt myself for years doing exercises I thought I had to do. And when I stopped them, I got bigger and I got stronger and I got better results when I was like, oh, I'm not actually trying to do a movement, I'm trying to do something to a muscle, and I can do that with a lot of different tools. So much as you don't have to do any exercises, find stuff that generally works best for you. Listen to some intelligent people that are trying to do preventative things. Some things right away. If it hurts, don't do it. I don't care what it is or who tells you it's awesome or whatever. If it hurts, don't do it. Find something else. And listen to people when they say, if you're doing curls with a straight bar and your arms and elbows are flared out here, even if they don't hurt now, listen to somebody that says, hey man, maybe just do this, do a dumbbell or something, or do something that lines up better, because some stuff is kind of catch up with you down the road. So alignment matters. Range of motion and profiles I think are fairly important. I say the main rule, and this sums up all the length and stuff I think from a conceptual point now, is don't get caught in the squeezy zone. So the squeezy zone is where muscles are fully shortened and people sit around like, oh yeah, pecs, I feel it, it's good. And that's their pec workout. And they just do all cables or a pec deck. And then bicep stuff, they get the cable up high here and they go, oh yeah, squeezy stuff, that feels good. Or they just do their kickbacks and say, oh yeah, that feels good. If you're stuck in the squeezy zone, it might feel good, but I think there's a whole lot of intelligent and a lot of results we can point to that range of motion is not a great place to get stuck in. I'm confident saying you won't grow as much stuck in that place. So summed up profiles and range of motions, have some basic understanding of muscles mid to length and range, what exercises train them, and then what load them there. That's the profiles part, which is just too much for this video. Splits don't matter. Hate to say it, and I think they don't matter at all. I mean, when someone's brand new, I can make a whole lot of reasons why I would personally start with someone doing maybe full body or half body or whatever. But everybody's produced crazy results I've seen from beginners to intermediate to advanced jumping on a split they shouldn't do if they did all this stuff up here. So I know tons of guys that started on a bro split right from the very beginning. And again, I can make some arguments for why I probably wouldn't do that. If someone said, hey, I don't care, program for me, I wouldn't start there. But still, it's small. Doesn't matter. You do all this stuff right, you'll still get huge. Even doing the split you shouldn't do. Same thing with volume. Go back to my example here at the logbook. So if that number on that exercise gets bigger and your form has stayed the same, or it's gotten even better while that number gets bigger, you're going to have gotten bigger. Period. There's no way around it. So what does that have to do with volume? Very little. Now again, I don't have any problems with people messing around with volume, but the gauge should be, does it take away from this or add this? So there is some difference, so lower volume, medium, whatever it is, I think people can respond a little bit different. I could go into training age, things like that. There could be something that's a little bit of a personal preference. It has to do with your intensity, exercise. There's a whole lot of variables that go in there. So if you want to mess around with volume a little bit, sure, have at it. But your gauge should be this, logbook. Did you add more volume and now you're progressing slower? Too much volume. Do you have so little volume maybe that you feel like it's not adequate stimulus, like maybe you're doing one set, one working set per body part, and you're not be able to progress on that over time? Do a little bit more volume. Find your sweet spot, but let the logbook still be your gauge or your guide. And then reps in reserve, same thing. Again, there's a whole lot of reasons. I like the overwhelming concept of as little as possible to produce maximal results. So that could be a reason for new people not starting training to failure. That being said, myself included, I know people that just went in the gym right away and started trying to hurt themselves and train to failure. And maybe you like that, maybe whatever. Again, there's some variability. There's a whole lot of intelligent reasons not to, but it's not that big of a deal compared to everything else. Hopefully that helps. How would you go about making six figures as a trainer? Well, you asked. My first year making six figures as a trainer, before internet, before social media, was probably, I'll have to go back and check my tax forms, but probably 2008, working in a big box gym that was just basically, that doesn't exist anymore. They got bought out by LA Fitness, but it's very much more similar to like a Lifetime, if anyone's familiar with Lifetime. And how I would go about it, you asked. I have a certification that I do. This is just a screen recording when you're actually in the course of what the overview of stuff is. It's got 4 main chapters. It's got maybe close to 40 videos, but it's all the business side of personal training. So in 2008, I had gone to college. I had my degree. I'd had a little bit of valuable stuff. I'd started thinking a little teeny tiny bit, but I basically made more money than, at that point in time, 95% of trainers, because I was taught so well and had such good mentors teaching me the business side of training, like actually how to have good customer service, the ability to do the sales part, which is just communicate what you do well, the basics, because everyone now businesses all around the globe, not just training, is so bad at basic business, basic professionalism, basic customer service, that if you master those things, you will by far be in the top 1%. And so I didn't really do my first real nerd certification probably till 2009, 10. I got a little bit exposed to RTS, then I got exposed to Paulkin Group, then I went down the rabbit hole and didn't look back. But I was making six figures before I was very intelligent. I was probably very average on intelligence compared to the rest of the trainers. I was around it in the industry. But that's what I created the certification for. So Hypertrophy Coach University, shameless play. It's not shameless, you asked for it. And this is what I teach in this course more than anything else. And this one, chapter 3, that's the money spot. So hands down where I go into customer service, client acquisition, marketing. I mean, this here, every trainer that I've spent some time with that's gone through this stuff, I'll constantly get messages where like, hey, this one video or this first thing or learning how to do that initial appointment, knowing how to do that sit down or knowing how to whatever. I got a client off the floor. I got a referral. I closed this appointment for $4,000. This is the money part of the entire thing. So I don't know how many are in there, maybe 15 plus sections within that. And you can see it's pretty stout if you can see those times on there. So you asked, but even if you're not going to do anything that I did, take the time to do more stuff to learn how to actually be a business professional, be a fitness professional, what that actually means. And if you, again, the training part is so easy because all it's a matter of is don't hurt your clients, have them show up, be consistent, have good adherence. And to be honest, the average people don't even have to work that hard. If they are just consistent, they adhere, you don't injure them, and you know how to take them through some of their own emotional stuff, which you're qualified to, which again is you're not qualified to be a psychologist, psychiatrist, any-ist, except for trainer. But you're able to say, hey, you told me this is important because of you. Remember that? Let's talk about that. Let's think about that. And again, it's all about adherence and consistency. You get them to make some better decisions with their food, some basics understanding of energy balance. You get them coming into the gym. They go from doing this much weight on one to a little bit more weight. And again, it's not hard at all to not injure people. What is hard is to communicate well with them, present your business well, be punctual, be on time, look the part, a whole bunch of stuff. So don't do my course, and you could still do really, really well just figuring some of that out on your own, but you might as well. Would you do a collab with Dr. Mike Israetel? Yes. So I talked a couple of times, all jokes aside, Dr. Mike's great. I think his content is great. I think his thought process is great. He's one of those guys that has some book intelligence. So I like it when the PhDs, because I don't know, I have just a couple letters. He's got PhD. I got BS, which is, Bachelor of Science, neat, exercise science. So he can start his videos saying, I'm a doctor of exercise or something. I'm just a bachelor of exercise. But all joking aside, he has some very, very good, structured education, but he also actually gets in, lifts hard, trains hard, actually trains bodies in front of him. So when I have people that are concerned with all types of education, not just the book stuff, but with what do I actually see applying stuff, those are people that I respect, and obviously he's very funny and presents his information very well. So we've chatted various times, but I don't even know what a collab would mean. I don't like to travel. So if Dr. Mike, you're watching this and you want to come to Tampa, hit me up. Got a sweet gym, but I don't like to fly without the fam because I'm old and I miss Little League practice. And that's not a joke. That's it for this one. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff. If you like the format, let me know. If you've got some more questions, hit me down below. And as always, if you see a question you like while you're down there, give it the little thumbs up deal, and those will be the ones that'll probably prioritize answering. Again, if you didn't in the beginning, do the YouTube thing, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And if you like this stuff, you think, hey, this guy probably knows what he's doing with programming, maybe knows a thing or two about putting on muscle, check out my app. I got a link down below. It does everything you could ever want, has a bajillion programs on there, place to track, do check-ins, nutrition, logbook, exercise library, tons of educational stuff in there, tons more content. So like I said, get in there, try it. You can try it free for 7 days. That's a good deal. And there's some other stuff. Just go click down there and feed my kids. But anyway, appreciate you guys. Until the next one, peace.